As an intern in the police force, I was assigned to work undercover under Big Brother Soprano. As a result, my hand slipped that night. I accidentally sent a screenshot of the youth study to the eldest brother. After a moment of silence, the eldest brother bounced the news. "I've learned more than 30,000 points, so I'll give you an award." My heart tightened, and my phone fell to the ground. Oh iniquity! It's only been undercover for less than a month, and if you are caught, will you not be able to get an internship certificate? In order to save the diploma, I hastened to remedy. "It's not the boss. It's a part-time job I do. 5 yuan a single order. You know, college students, it's better to deceive. Do you have to work part-time with me? I can't afford to support you." Seeing that I couldn't hold it anymore, I made a bitter trick, twisted the root of my thighs hard, and sent a voice. "I'm sorry boss, but my family depends on my grandfather's farming to survive, and this year's harvest is not good." Sure enough, Evan Josh didn't speak over there. I hurriedly forwarded the screenshot to the squad leader, and hid in the toilet to secretly report the recent situation. But when I exited, I suddenly saw a small red dot in the circle of friends. "Evan Josh, I'm damn it." Not really. I went back to the staff quarters, and looked at the ceiling with a sigh of relief. The team has long been eyeing Evan Josh's Goodnight KTV, which has become the largest entertainment venue in the city in just half a year, and even many leaders have come and gone. So I was sent undercover as an assistant to search for evidence of Evan Josh's violation. But it's been more than a month. Evan Josh didn't do anything bad except for one wrong walk to the women's bathroom, and it looks like a fool. This kind of person can also be the underworld. The captain is incompetent and furious over there. Don't let your guard down too much. He's an old fox. I think of Evan Josh's high-profile facial features and low-energy brains, and I still think it's unlikely. As a result, I didn't expect to show my feet the next day. Evan Josh asked me to write a collaboration list, and I was halfway through the fish when he suddenly sat down on the edge of his chair. "Jill Motley, you're a cop." My head cleared instantly, and I sat up straight. "Boss, what do you say? I feed pigs in my hometown. How can I be a policeman?" He hugged his arms, his hair hanging down languidly. The bridge of his nose was straight from this angle, and his eyes were half squinted. "It's a bit like a fox, indeed. Every time you write a report, it's all in the force-specific format." I froze. God knows why Evan Josh knew the format of the team's report. When I was raising pigs in the village, I wrote a propaganda poster for the town's public security bureau. He stammered, and his toes picked at the ground. Evan Josh watched as I took a sip of my coffee, touched my head and stood up. "Got it, that was it," and I watched him walk out, just about to rush to the end of the report, and he came back. I also carried a pork cutlet in my hand. "Eat, don't be homesick. It's really ironclad and tender." I don't know if I'm acting too expressively, but Evan Josh cares more and more about me, and trusts me more and more. When I was about a month old, he started taking me with him when he went out on business. It was said that it was about business, but from the mouths of several subordinates, it seemed that another KVT was always playing tricks, and Evan Josh was there to negotiate with them. It's long overdue. The boss can really bear it. That's it. If you don't convince him this time, we won't want to save face. I listened to the conversation in the car, and I was so frightened that I quickly sent the squad leader a string of Morse passwords. It took a while over there to come back. "Send some bird language. Give me normal speech." I glanced at Evan Josh in the passenger seat, and quickly clicked on the screen. "They're going to gather together and fight, and you can come and surround them in a moment." As soon as the message was sent, I looked up and met Evan Josh's eyes in the rearview mirror. He half squinted, and raised an eyebrow. "See what?" The car suddenly fell silent, and my subordinates came over to watch, and I quickly turned off the screen. The deep and flamboyant eyebrows and eyes suddenly wrinkled, and his face sank. "Hiding from what?" "I'm a little nervous, so I look at the little yellow book for a while to relieve my mood. I'm a little shy." The driver braked suddenly, and the car was silent. I saw the corners of Evan Josh's mouth twitch twice, and I was about to let my guard down when I heard him speak leisurely. "What's the name?" "Hey." He laughed and pointed to his phone. "I'm nervous too. Let me take a look too. Why is it so difficult to deal with?" I was in a hurry. swallowed my saliva and yelled, "It's called Liko. Go and see." He lowered his head to search, and after a moment slammed his phone to the side, opening the window to try to calm down. "Jill Motley, you're really perverted. I love it. The taste is really strong." By the time I arrived at my destination, I had fallen asleep and Evan Josh was waking me up by pinching my face, and I was in front of a ruined building. I glared and saw the necessary place for the second class of the movie. Evan Josh pulled me out of the car, cigarette in the corner of his mouth, black stud earrings glittering. "You're coming with me for the first time, aren't you?" I nodded, and suddenly I felt a little bottomless. Although the self-defense learned in the police academy was enough, it really started fighting after a while. "I'd better stay away." He nodded, and as he walked inside, he asked me coldly, "Have you ever seen The God of Gamblers? What's wrong with that? Just sit next to me like you did in a moment." I was a little confused, and I walked in and saw the mahjong table. Before I reacted in a daze, Evan Josh had already walked over with a smile, and raised his chin with the bowed man next to him. "Leonard, if you win this time, you have to talk about it. Don't touch our company again." The man snorted coldly, raised his eyebrows and began to rub mahjong. I never dreamed that the way two industry bigwigs would negotiate would be to play mahjong in an abandoned building. Evan Josh smiled and patted his thigh. "Sit down." My heart was pounding and my cheeks were red. "Although he is handsome, this kind of behavior is not." He raised an eyebrow, but his voice was drowned, a threat in his deep voice. "Not yet." I swallowed and sat down cautiously, instantly surrounded by the smell of him. "It's a bit like a pine and cypress, and it smells of tobacco." "Boss, why do you have to do this?" Evan Josh circled me, breathing in my ear. "Because of this, it's more windy." True love pretending to be a big boy. I shifted a little embarrassed, but suddenly I felt something rub against my thigh. "No, he has a cucumber in his pocket." I was quietly moving to the side, but he grabbed me by the waist. "Don't move. The melons are all broken for me." Evan Josh grabbed my waist with one hand and lifted it gently, and with the other he pulled a cucumber out of his pocket. "There really is." Halfway through it, Evan Josh threw it to me before he could finish it. "Although I'm an assistant, I don't have so much business, so I have to eat leftovers even if I accompany the performance." Seeing that I was getting angry, Evan Josh happily pushed his hand and let me go. "Who?" He squinted and smiled like a fox, palms facing up and gently tapping the table with his knuckles. "Joyce, remember our bets." I quickly took out my mobile phone and sent a retreat message to the captain, but as soon as I sent it, I was suddenly pulled by a strong force. "Jill Motley, be careful." A water bottle whistled in my ear and exploded on the side of my leg. The splattered shards slammed across his pants, and a hole broke in his calf. Evan Josh's face sank and he pulled me behind him. "What the do you want to do?" Joyce stood up in her suit. "Don't play." There was a crackling sound, and a few people over there rushed over. I didn't expect that the situation could be reversed, and when I saw someone rushing over with a stool, I quickly dodged it and gave him a kick by the way. As soon as he turned around and wanted to slip away, his wrist was tightly clenched. Evan Josh pulled me sideways, kicked the man in the knee, and didn't forget to look back and make a wink for me. "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." It's still pretending at this time. If you hadn't dragged me, I would have run away. Seeing someone coming with a stick, I turned around and clasped his armpit, remembering the force of the captain telling me to unload someone's arm, and I just wanted to do it. Was forcefully withdrawn. "Jill Motley, get out of the way." Evan Josh was so much harder than I thought I would have been, and I rolled on the floor a few times before hitting the table leg, nosebleeds down the chin. I was so dizzy with anger that I wanted to kick him twice while I was in trouble. Suddenly, I saw Joyce holding a stool from behind, and she seemed to be holding my phone in her hand. "Wait a minute, cell phone. There's a chat history of me and the captain." Before Evan Josh could turn around, I lunged over, one arm stuck on the stool, and the other quickly snatched the phone. "This thing is my life." "Bad old man." "Good thing," Joyce roared, and before I could look up, the stool smashed straight down. There was a sharp stabbing pain in my forehead, and I shook my eyes and fell straight back. "Jill Motley." Evan Josh hugged me from behind, his low, eager voice growing more and more ethereal. Something was running down my forehead so hot and wet that it hurt so hard that I couldn't open my eyes. He cried, "Why did you drain my head?" In the blur I saw Evan Josh reddening from the corners of his eyes, holding my face over and over again until he was pulled away by the doctor. The world has finally quieted down. I quickly got up and quickly formatted my phone, and then completely fainted. When I woke up again, I was in a hospital bed. A little brother on the side was startled when he saw me, and howled in his voice, "Sister Jill Motley, wake up, call the boss over." I sat up slowly, and I felt that the world was spinning in front of me, and before I could sit down, I held my head with both hands. Slow down. Evan Josh was sweating on his forehead. His hair was unkempt, hanging loosely, and the corners of his eyes were red, and his circles were dark. "Boss, why aren't you a human or a ghost?" He held my face and looked around for a moment before slowly breathing a sigh of relief. "You've been in a coma for 3 days, and you're scared to death." The little brother on the side walked over and poked my arm awkwardly. "Sister Jill Motley, I can't see that you, like the boss so much. That's it, are willing to block the stool for the boss? So handsome." Before I could react, Evan Josh kicked the man. "Get out of here. Jill Motley's name is your name." The room fell silent instantly, and I reacted and quickly looked at my phone, which was placed at the head of the bed. "That's great, Can." I hung my head, my fingers gripping a pair of bony joints, and even the fingertips were rubbing gently in my palms. "Boss, what are you doing?" Evan Josh sat at the head of the bed, almost half of his body pressed against me. "Jill Motley, I didn't understand before." His expression was slowly serious, but the tips of his ears were frighteningly red. "I know your mind now. I'm a little confused. What do I want?" As soon as he finished speaking, Evan Josh wrapped me into his arms from behind, his chin gently hooked around my shoulders, and his voice was muffled. "But it's not a good time yet. I'll wait until you're healed." The more he spoke, the quieter his voice became, and the whole person was lying on top of me, and I couldn't hear what was being said at all. My heart was beating so loudly that I was dizzy in the head. "Why didn't you know that he was fragrant before? The fingers are so big, and the shoulders are so broad." Wrong. What the hell am I thinking? Suddenly reacting to it, I crawled forward to break away from him, shaking my head frantically. "Not the boss. I think you've misunderstood something. I saved you for my innocence and dignity." Before I could speak again, the door was suddenly pushed open, and 2 familiar figures approached. "By the way, Jill Motley, your parents came to see you." I looked at the smiling captain and counselor and raised my hand to slap myself. It must be a dream. After Evan Josh went out, the captain moved a stool and sat down. "We went that day, and you guys were having a lot of fun, and you were all hugging each other." "Fuck off." I took a bite of the apple and pointed to my phone. "Tomorrow is the last day of my internship, so I can go back after stamping, right?" "No." He lowered his voice and approached, opened the information on his phone and gave it to me. "When we were retreating that day, we saw this in a car at the door." I zoomed in on the picture and was covered by the counselor as I exclaimed, "Isn't this the counterfeit money you've been tracking down before? Why are you here? Is that Evan Josh?" "Not sure." The captain took back his phone, his face gloomy. "There was only one box, and I couldn't startle the snake, so I didn't continue to check at that time. So you can't return until this is cleared up." I glared and blushed as I pointed out, "I'm the trainee captain now, and you're going to sell me? Did you see that old fox hugged me just now?" The counselor hurriedly took me in his arms and smoothed my hair, and saw the captain grinning sheepishly. "I think you're enjoying it too. I couldn't take it anymore, and slammed the IV tube and walked out. "I'm quitting. I'm going back." Evan Josh was at the door, and when he saw me, he lifted me up with one hand and patted the instep of my foot with the other. "Why didn't you come out without slippers? What's going on?" The captain glared, and the counselor quickly grabbed him and smiled. It's okay. We just asked Jill Motley to go on a blind date, and she doesn't want to." I felt the air chill around me, and saw Evan Josh look up at me with a frown. "You want a blind date, don't you like?" Yikes. I quickly covered his mouth and flat twice on his arm. Don't say it. He lowered his head and couldn't see his expression clearly. and carried me to the bed. I went to the nurse again, watched with pity as I finished the needle, and sat on the other side to help me press the wound that had just been torn off. You're in a tight house. Thinking of the counselor's words just now, my face turned red. Not really, boss. You're in the house. Don't you rush. Josh paused, helped me to lie down, and tucked the quilt. My parents have passed away a long time ago. I was stunned, and I came out with a damn cold, and I didn't know whether to comfort him, or not for a while. But it doesn't matter. I will have a new family, when I get married in the future. Boss, do you like sons or daughters? Josh was stunned for a moment, not knowing why his cheeks suddenly turned a little red. Why do you ask this? Daughter. I gritted my teeth and plucked up courage. Daddy, helping others to dream without fear of dignity. Spent 7 days in the hospital. Josh reverted to his peacock appearance, the day after I woke up, and every now and then a tired love sentence or two popped up. I occasionally wear earplugs, and looking at his face, I feel reluctant. The last time the captain asked me to find out if the money had anything to do with Josh, I didn't have a plan for days. Seeing him sit down again, I accidentally glanced at the dial of his wrist, and I had an idea. Boss, what brand is your watch? He paused, and reached for his hand. Rolex. Do you like it? I shrunk my neck and quickly let go of my hand, for fear of touching him, so I quietly got closer. Boss, you're probably. How much money do you have? Compare his assets with the annual income value of the KTV industry in the system to see if there is any oddity. Josh was stunned for a moment, then sat up straight. Jill Motley, don't be pressured. I won't bargain if my aunt thinks something is auspicious. I think it's a bit out of the same channel to communicate with him. Forget it, I won't ask. Let's get discharged. Sitting in the car, I remembered that the captain had said that Josh had only come to prominence a few years ago, and that he had never been the same person before. I can take the opportunity to inquire. That, boss. Josh suddenly closed the window and leaned over to help me fasten my seatbelt. What's wrong? My cheeks were a little hot, and I looked at him sideways. His facial features and sharp jawline were cynical with a hint of strength. What did you do before you became a boss? He laughed. What? Treat me like an idol. Learn about my entrepreneurial history. After laughing for a moment, his deep voice spoke. Working in a barbecue restaurant. I wowed. Interested. Is it an investor? It's not. It's a waiter who barbecues. Heh. The car stopped waiting for the traffic light. Josh scratched my nose sideways, and suddenly learned the accent of Xinjiang people singing. Xinjiang mutton skewers. Come over a skewer. The smell of a plateau came to my face, and for a moment I felt that the ice cream in my hand had turned into milk skin. I held back for a moment, and I couldn't help but laugh. Why do you shout like that? Josh paused, and there was a hint of emotion in his eyes, that was always smiling that I couldn't understand, as if he was stunned. Boss. He turned around and hurriedly stepped on the gas. Then why did you have a good night? I've become a big boss. I saved some money, and I originally planned to open a barbecue restaurant, but I did this by chance. I didn't expect this answer. I originally thought that there would be a big background behind him, the kind of image that covers the sky with one hand. I didn't expect this to be an underworld article. It's an inspirational article. The car stopped downstairs in the dormitory, and Josh went to the hospital to buy some abrasion medicine for me, saying that I still had a little red on the bridge of my nose, and that I would kill Joyce next time to avenge me. I think it's better to give yourself 2 slaps in the face. Before leaving, he held on to the door frame, and suddenly stuffed me with a box. Here's for you. Get some rest early. Good night. The last 2 words exploded in my ears like a bomb, especially with his face when it's not greasy. I actually had a kind of rebellion. I closed the door and patted my cheek, and opened the box to see a new women's watch. Rolex. Damn, who can stand this? Once my head was right, I started spying on Josh. I thought I couldn't find out why, but I didn't expect it to be really rewarding. He has a bedroom in the inner wing of his office, and there is a safe on the wall of the bedroom. One time I went over to bring him coffee, and saw him writing something on the phone. The moment he saw me, he covered it with a book. Eventually, it was all stuffed into that safe, and since I came back, There has been no more to do about the report. At most it is to serve tea and sweep the floor. You mean, the safe might be a secret contract? Yes, I reported to the captain as usual. But suddenly I heard a knock on the door. A few bullfrog-like little brothers looked at me embarrassedly, and took out a cake from behind me. Sister Jill Motley, today is the boss' birthday. Let's buy a cake. But it's better for you to send it. I didn't know it was Evan Josh's birthday. But I walked to the office with a cake, and found that he wasn't there at all. There was no one even in the bedroom. While everyone was not paying attention, I secretly walked to the toilet with the cake, and opened the map on my phone. Back on my last discharge home, I had a location tracker installed in Evan Josh's car. Now the dot is moving in the direction of the suburbs. What did he go to the suburbs for? Or leave your birthday behind? It's greasy. I threw the cake in the passenger seat, sent the captain a spot and chased after it, only to see Evan Josh stop when it was getting dark. It's actually a cemetery. There was silence all around. The car was humming so loudly that I saw Evan Josh's gloomy face as soon as I got out of the car. Why are you here? I swallowed and quickly took out the cake. Come on, I'll bring you a cake. He raised his chin slightly. The wind blew through the broken hair on his forehead, and his eyes looked like a ruthless hunter. Jill Motley, don't you understand? I'm asking you, how did you know I was here? Someone else said it. I heard from others, so I just said it earlier. Evan Josh laughed as he heard my explanation, as if it were just a hallucination. I shuddered. I didn't expect this to be fooled, so I hurriedly carried the cake over. Why are you here? Look at my parents. He pointed to the tombstone in front of him, crouched down and poured the wine on the ground, and glanced sideways at me. Where's the cake? I was stunned by his handsomeness, and quickly squatted down. The moment the lid was opened, a lump of white and yellow fell off the lid. It seems to be shaky. Why don't I go back and buy you another one? Evan Josh shook his head, sat down cross-legged, picked up the fork and began to eat. I was just about to speak again when his phone rang and he looked at me out of the corner as he answered the phone. The moment the phone hung up, Evan Josh put down his fork and turned to look at me. Jill Motley, there's police following us. I haven't told anyone about this place. Who told you that? And why did the police follow? My back froze, and I didn't dare to move as I looked at his scrutinizing eyes. Police? Are the police coming to sweep the graves too? He squinted, but the fox-like appearance made me shudder. Some time ago, someone said that there were undercover police agents in the store. I swallowed. The cake in my mouth was gone, and I saw him get closer and closer. It's just the two of us. I doubt. The next second, he stretched out his finger and pointed at himself. I suspect I'm undercover. Heh. I didn't react, and I had an extra coat on me. Evan Josh looked stern and lowered his voice to analyze with me. I suspect I'm schizophrenic, and my other personality is an undercover police officer. He couldn't be that stupid. I pointed at myself weakly. Boss, don't you doubt me? Evan Josh tilted his head, held his chin and laughed, his hair flying, and the sunset under his eyes shone with a tiny light. I believe in you. So, he bumped his forehead against mine, put his hand on his cheek, and quietly lowered his voice. I don't trust myself anymore. I'll tell you the password to my safe. You set one again. Don't let me know. I looked at the password he wrote for me, and I was a little overwhelmed for a moment. Is it that simple? Where's the trick? Where is IQ? Where is the first-class merit? After driving back, I didn't even bother to sneak around, and went straight into Evan Josh's bedroom, pressed the code and opened the safe. The phone rang suddenly. I took it and put it between my ears and shoulders and pulled the iron door open. At the same time, the captain's words came from his ears. Jill Motley, come back. Mission accomplished. Evan Josh is innocent. The thing is Joyce's. I couldn't hear the rest of the words, but there was a humming sound like a wave sweeping through the sea, and it hit my heart again and again. In the safe, there are roses stuffed to the brim. There's a note in the middle. To Jill Motley. I held my breath, and there was a small boat in my heart that went forward with the wind and waves, gradually sinking in the wind and rain, sinking step by step. Jill Motley. When you read this letter, please don't praise your brother's romance. I know you like me, but I'm embarrassed to speak. It's okay. Brother says it first. Because brother loves you more. Here is brother's bank card and company ledger. Take what you need, my little policeman. My head exploded, and after the wind and rain subsided, it was the sun that fell in small pieces. It burned so much that my heart hurts. I ran away out of nowhere. I rolled it back to the team overnight, and Evan Josh put all the work machine and cards I had given me. Didn't take anything? Apart from that love letter. He knew I was a police officer from the beginning, and he knew I was looking for him, but he also took me through the market step by step, luring me deeper and deeper. It's a big deal this time. The captain said that while following us to the cemetery that day, he crashed into Joyce's car and found evidence of counterfeit banknotes. You mean to catch it? I glared. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? The counselor sighed and patted me. Now there's good news and bad news, I replied. Listen to the bad first. Everything has been pushed by Joyce, and I found someone to top the bag, but I still can't catch him. Oh, good news. The captain reported this to you, and it is your credit for it. I gasped and returned to my seat to the applause of the crowd, but I always felt that something was wrong. That's going too well, isn't it? It's like the same that was delivered to me. I inexplicably remembered Evan Josh's scheming face. No way. The award in hand suddenly became unstable, and I walked to the door with a mess in my head and accidentally bumped into someone. I'm sorry. The man didn't move. His face couldn't be seen in the shadows, but he could smell a familiar smell. I shuddered and took a few steps back. Evan Josh was wearing a leather jacket and smiling eyes under broken hair, tilting his head to look at me. Jill Motley, it's fitting for you to dress like this. I staggered back a few steps, stammering but unable to utter a word. My heart is beating so fast. Before I could say anything more, the captain trotted out to meet him. Evan Josh is here. Come and sit inside. He patted me again. Jill Motley is stunned, going to pour tea for Evan Josh. For the first time, I knew that my face could change like this, when someone else had amnesia. I don't remember you. How could you? Before I could finish speaking, Evan Josh nodded politely at me and turned to leave. Just gone. A sour feeling suddenly appeared in my heart, and I itched so much that I wanted to scratch my ears and cheeks. No, didn't you confess to me? Just gone. Don't you still call me by name? And pretend not to know this. Thinking of the polite look just now, it was as if a different person. Could it be because I secretly left myself angry? But I told him my personal number before, and he didn't call. Don't like me anymore. The dense soreness in my heart began to hurt with this sudden thought. The water heater was dripping, and I subconsciously stretched out my hand, but was grabbed violently. Be careful. The body was jerked and slammed into an arm. The counselor hurried over and pressed the full kettle. Before I could say anything, Evan Josh broke me up, and he raised his fingers to look at them. Is it hot? Does it hurt? I felt so sick that I shook off his hand. You don't care. Evan Josh was stunned, then put on the fake mildness of an outsider, and took a step back and let me go. It's me who is abrupt. Again, he turned sharply, his footsteps slowly moving away. My nose was sour, and I kept my head down and refused to lift it. After a while, the captain came back at a trot, grabbed me and pulled me into the house. Jill Motley asked you to make a cup of tea, and everyone left without taking a sip. I turned my face away, and as soon as I opened my mouth, I realized that my voice was hoarse. What is he doing here? Oh, don't worry. I've already explained to Evan Josh that your past was a misunderstanding. There are a lot of adults, and this time they are here to provide us with clues. Clues. The captain took a sip of tea, grinned so badly that he simply threw it aside. Evan Josh said that Joyce had been trying to get him into the counterfeit business, but he never agreed. And then, no more. I was stunned and blinked inexplicably. That's all. What's the use of? The captain smiled and beckoned the counselor to sit down. So, we want you to go and talk to him. Ask him to help him agree, and catch Joyce while the time comes. Seeing the ill-intentioned appearance of the two, I clutched my chest and quickly pushed back. I'm going. Why? The captain smiled and deliberately raised his voice. People like you now. You like it so much. He will definitely listen to what you say. I remembered what he had just looked like and pouted. How can you tell he likes me? Look at the ophthalmology of you. He said it himself. Just now. I was completely confused. By the time he reacted, the captain had already made arrangements. Today, everyone in the team finished their internship, and I just made an appointment to sing here all night, and I was stripped of my clothes by the counselor, changed into a skirt and thrown at the door of the Goodnight KTV. Jill Motley, why did you get there? I reacted for a while before I remembered that it was a classmate from my previous class, and hurried over. You seem to be Burgess. He smiled and walked beside me, and reached out to help me carry my bag. I thought you weren't coming, but the counselor said let's pick you up. My heart is sour. It's so bitter. Others are here to sing, but I'm still here on a mission. I've been walking this place for almost 2 months, and I know the location of each private room better than anyone else. But I didn't expect to see Evan Josh in the lobby. Doesn't he sleep in the office or play backgammon with me on weekdays? When he reached the middle, he suddenly turned around, looking at each other. I saw his vague eyes and quickly opened them. I didn't even think about what to say. I quickly pulled the sleeve in front of me and lowered my voice. Burgess, yes, the elevator is over there. Don't wander around. When we arrived, everyone was already in a mess. A few were drinking and shaking the dice around, and a few were holding their heads and singing bitter love songs. I couldn't make a perfect sound, and I sat in the corner with Burgess for a long time. After a few glasses of wine, several girls began to chat about gossip. Hey, did you see the boss here when you came? I'm going to be super handsome. That's right, there must be 185 plus. Jill Motley, do you see that? I suddenly remembered his usual narcissistic and nonsensical appearance, and I couldn't help but laugh, kind of like a peacock. At this point, Burgess lowered his voice and leaned in. Don't be a nymphomaniac. I've heard from others that this boss doesn't have clean hands. Don't really sweep the field here in the future. You guys go to the bureau and continue to be nymphomaniac. I don't know if it was the alcohol or the lights were too harsh, but little by little, Evan Josh came to mind. He's always smiling, but it's hard to get close to. In private, he is NAVE and greasy, and he likes to watch dog-blooded ethical dramas, so he still has to discuss it with him. But every penny he has here is clean. I have more say than anyone else. With a bang, the glass fell to the ground. I slammed to my feet, my heart aching. Why do you say that to others? You're a police officer yourself. Don't you know don't talk nonsense without evidence? The music shook violently, and the whole box fell silent. The scene of the social death. I'm sorry, I might have drunk a little too much. I scolded Evan Josh 10,000 times in my heart, and felt that I couldn't do this task. So I grabbed my bag and walked out. But as soon as I got out, Burgess chased after me and grabbed my wrists violently. Jill Motley, am I saying something wrong? What's wrong with you? Before I could speak, someone suddenly grabbed my waist from behind and pulled me directly into my arms. Don't touch her. Burgess stared at him and was stunned. And so was I. With a squeeze of Evan Josh, he hooked me away from Burgess and into his arms. His arms around my waist and his back pressed against his chest. Even his heartbeat could be heard. You too. Burgess' face flushed, and his gaze fell on me. Jill Motley, you won't be with him. Before I could say anything, he lifted me up. Evan Josh looked up at me, the stoic and angry in his eyes, and raised his other hand to pat me on the cheek. Didn't your friend ask you? Hey, tell him. I felt the alcohol rush through my mind, and the soreness just now finally found a breakthrough, scrambling to spread from my heart. Didn't you pretend you didn't know? Why are you looking at me like that now? Angry, I lowered my head. I kissed him the corner of the mouth, but quickly parted before he could hold my head. Yes, it's my boyfriend. Burgess' face was ugly, and he said for a long time. No wonder I said it wrong. I'm sorry. As he returned to the private room, I struggled to jump out of Evan Josh's arms. Thank you, Evan Josh, for helping me out. Don't send it. In the next second, the back of his neck was pinched, and he gently pulled back, scooped me into the office. After kissing, you turn your face and don't recognize anyone. I leaned my back against the door, and tilted my head sideways to look at him. We're all adults, and we're still responsible for kissing them. Evan Josh put his hands in his pockets and suddenly laughed. I see. I didn't have time to say that it was okay for him to laugh like this, and the next second he pressed it down. then kiss it a few more times, and give it to you for free. Half an hour later, I was lying on the couch like a dog panting for breath. Evan Josh squatted down to look at me with a smile. Do you want to kiss again? Kiss the fart. My head was swollen and I even had a little tinnitus. You're here to practice breath holding, right? You can't breathe. I'll teach you, right? Get out. He lay quietly on the side and looked at me, and suddenly spoke. Card. Why didn't you take it? My mouth was swollen and aching, and I sat up angrily. I don't want your money. And what do you want? Evan Josh sat down and somehow pulled me into his lap again. I looked into his wet eyes, and a thought popped into me for a moment. It turns out that that sentence is true. Like someone, you cover your mouth and it will run out of your eyes. Evan Josh is really fond of me. Actually, at that time, I was hit that time to get the phone, not to save you. I feel guilty. Evan Josh smiled and pinched the corners of my mouth. I know, you have screen surveillance on your phone. I froze for a few seconds and covered my mouth. Then I report to the captain every day. You know, yes, I clock in on time every day. You know, yes. He leaned back on the couch and looked up at me, including you looking through my circle of friends, in the middle of the night, and looking at it with a magnified face for half an hour. I also know. Innocence is gone. Evan Josh sat up and cupped my face. Answer me, Jill Motley. What do you want? I remembered what the captain said, and I gritted my teeth with a trace of weakness in my heart. I want you to help us get evidence that Joyce is a counterfeit. My heart was beating wildly, but a voice was shouting, say no. Don't let me take advantage of you like that. Reject me, and I will promise you. Evan Josh looked at me and smiled after a moment. Okay, I'll help you. For the next few days, Evan Josh didn't look for me, except good morning and good night and crazy selfie swipes. The captain said he agreed to the action, and just looked at my red and swollen mouth. It's a feeling of selling a girl. I felt more guilty than he did, and as I looked at the various arrows on the whiteboard, my worries grew. The last time we met, I also learned about Joyce's temper. It's cloudy. It's a madman. Let Evan Josh work with him. Once he actually starts action, there's a good chance it will hurt Evan Josh. I pestered for a long time, and I got the opportunity to participate in the mission in exchange for the Excellence Award, and Evan Josh also sent the time and location. Joyce asked him to meet him on the ship the day after tomorrow, and when the time came, she would take him to watch the production process in person so that he could inspect the goods. Everything was planned, but no one expected that Joyce would not be sincere at all. He brought machines and counterfeit bills, but he didn't plan to let Evan Josh go in the first place. In the past few years, he has made a lot of money, but he has not been as good as a good night in business, including the last time. As soon as he got on board, Evan Josh was taken away from all his communication equipment, even his sunglasses. By the time we surveyed and prepared to act, he was already aware of it. Even the bombs on the ship were activated. The captain went after him, with a part of the men, and the rest of the men withdrew with the evidence. I looked for Evan Josh everywhere and never got an answer. Evan Josh, where the hell are you? I shouldn't have used you. I was wrong. Answer me. The bomb will explode. I was dragged onto the boat by my teammates, and when I cried out to be swallowed by the wind, the boat exploded into a ball of flames, in front of me. Evan Josh. The shock rippled through the last boat to be evacuated, and I was swept into the water and kept falling. Everything around me began to turn white, and a figure was getting closer and closer to me. Who are you? The figure in the haze gradually became clear, and slowly asked me, I am God. What else do you want? My heart hurt so much that I could barely breathe, and I struggled to open my mouth for a long time, before I could utter a syllable. I want Evan Josh. God paused, crouched down in front of me, and patted me on the cheek. Then watch the 30-second ad to help you resurrect Evan Josh online. Then, some kind of advertisement for Diana pills that didn't fit in detail popped into my mind. Even the swarthy man like a bullfrog, or Evan Josh's face. Heh, what a weird thing this is. I sat up, jerked up and spat out a mouthful of water. A huge feeling of suffocation that seemed to tear through my chest. Evan Josh knelt in front of me, soaking wet, patted me on the cheek and smiled. What are you stunned about? Drinking water stupidly. Evan Josh. As soon as my nose was sore, Tears came out of my eyes, and I pounced on it. Scared the hell out of me. What are you afraid of? I don't. It scared the hell out of me. I watched a disgusting ad for 30 seconds. It was scary. The corners of Evan Josh's mouth twitched twice, patted me on the head, and pulled away what I wanted to say. I quickly rushed up to cover his mouth, took a deep breath and spoke. Boss, I'm the undercover agent. I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you, and I shouldn't have been using you until now. You're right. I did like you and was embarrassed to say it in the first place. I want to be with you now. Evan Josh laughed, the studs shining in the flames, but not as bright as half of the stars under his eyes. Okay, brother, I'm ready. Extra, Evan Josh's first love memoirs. My mom left early, and when I graduated from high school, my dad also left due to an accident. My relatives were like playing ball, and they all thought I was unlucky. After sleeping for a month, I felt like I couldn't go on like this. Every morning, when I get up, I silently recite 3 times in front of the mirror. Brother can make a lot of money. Brother is the most handsome. Brother is the best. In fact, it is useless, but such a mentally retarded behavior will really cover up those embarrassing days. When I entered the society, I learned that only the kind of polite and clean people will make everyone like. In order to survive, I started practicing laughing at home. The results are good, and my classmates in college think I am very kind, and help me introduce me to many part-time jobs. Counting it carefully, selling lamb skewers makes the most money, and you can get more than 3,000 yuan a month. It may be that my brother's advertising words are too slippery. Today, I sold skewers as usual and saw a little girl, wearing a police uniform. It seems to be from the police academy next door, and she is not so thin that she feels like she can be killed with one punch. She said I shouted too much like a fool, and was tricked into buying 10 skewers, laughing to death. I think there is more meat on the skewer than on her face. Can you finish it? It turned out that she really finished eating. Okay, brother admires her. The little girl came again, and heard someone call her from behind. Like Jill Motley, it's quite similar to our dog named Dachshund. This time, she ate with her friends, and she was still very good at eating. Maybe the training at the police academy was very hard. So how did a skinny ostrich like her hold on? But she laughs beautifully. Unlike me, she is the kind of person who can see that she is white even when she is dirty. It's so beautiful. Today Jill Motley is here again, eating at the stall with a few friends. During this period, a boy asked for 2 bottles of beer, and frolicked with the people around him, and said that he wanted to confess. I thought you can't choose this place. I'm dirty, and I looked down on Jill Motley. Sure enough, Jill Motley refused. Say, boring. Say like, funny men like double-door refrigerators. It's so trendy. I don't understand what it means. The next day, I searched the double door, and a lot of comics popped up. It turns out that Jill Motley is a little pervert. Isn't it just muscle? Brother, yes, I can easily hold her with one hand, but imagine it alike. Jill Motley came to buy skewers today, and he almost got started. He was a police officer and arrested me. It seems that in the days to come, we will have to strictly abide by the law. Can we help Jill Motley? 2 semesters have passed, and I have saved some money over the years, and want to open a barbecue restaurant. Jill Motley didn't come today, and after leaving the school gate, he took a taxi with a few classmates at the gate, saying that he was going to run a long way to sing. I overheard the name of the place, and it was far enough. In the past 2 years, I have practiced at a consistent level, and I can always overhear Jill Motley's voice in the crowd. I once heard her tell her classmates that I was handsome. Yes, I've discovered my brother's charm. I washed my hands when I closed the stall, went back to the dormitory to change my clothes, and asked my roommate to wipe my hair. They say like a flower peacock. It's handsome though. For the first time, I thought I had a 0-1 chance with Jill Motley. After graduation, all the money was used to make KTV, ran a lot of places and talked a lot about the boss, drinking until he vomited blood. He walked to the school gate, and came too late to see Jill Motley. However, I always remember the teachings and do not touch the boundaries of the law, but the boundary in my heart is her. The kind skin that has been cultivated over the years has gained a lot of benefits, and the Good Night KTV is open. Business has slowly started to get better in the past few years, and I have saved a lot of money. I feel a little more confident in my heart. Jill Motley was rarely seen after that, and occasionally she could be seen coming out of school from a distance when time passed by stuck without lamb skewers. She went to eat octopus balls. TSK. My heart is not very happy. I was replaced. Business is getting better and better, and he is targeted by a man named Joyce. His hands and feet are not clean, but he always tries to win me over. As a result, I was also targeted by the police, but I didn't expect to run into Jill Motley. She was a little thinner than before, and she came to interview the assistant with a lot of fighting spirit. It turned out that her name was Jill Motley. Jill Motley's resume was a mess. She said that she used to help people raise pigs, and after talking for a while, she was drooling. I had no choice but to help her go out and buy a pork cutlet. No way. Brother is so caring. Peeking at Jill Motley's phone, he looked at my photos for almost half an hour. Looks like I'm going to have to show my abs tomorrow. Today Jill Motley recommends a book. Damn, it's still that little pervert. Jill Motley was injured. It's that I didn't look at her. She had slept for 3 days, and she was already thin, but now she was fluttering, and a gust of wind blew it down. I didn't dare close my eyes, or look at her. It's my fault. It's me who didn't protect her. Jill Motley woke up. I cheekily asked her if she liked me, and she retorted vigorously, over the years, my brother has seen more faces than she has ever caught a thief. Little girl, everything is written on her face. I've been killed by my brother. And Jill Motley. Eat cake with Jill Motley. Jill Motley is gone, frightened by my confession. Blunder, but don't panic. My brother is ready to spend a lifetime on her. I'm going to find a way to pull her back. I went to the police station today, and saw Jill Motley. This little girl looks so good in a police uniform. Just like when I first met her, I was stunned, and I almost didn't drool. The captain asked me why I was willing to cooperate, and I didn't hide it. I just like Jill Motley, and would do anything for her. That seems to be the case. But his captain used her to blackmail me, which was enough damage. Kiss. I'm the happiest man in the whole world. Jill Motley said let me help her, and I said yes. What is this? Even if it is up the knife mountain, and down the fire sea brother, he is willing. Jill Motley said he wanted to be with me. She didn't know. Brother has been waiting for 4 years for this sentence. The end.